take that space for you. I didn't say you always knew me. I didn't say you're coming home. 'Cause when I'm in day, I'm never alone. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Live in the Studio. We are joined today by Jacob Davis. Welcome, man. It is season 2, episode 1. Thank you so much for being here and helping us kick off the season together. We've got a friend over in the corner here. We got Trey Burke down there hanging out. He's going to be playing. That's what episode was Trey last season?
Ooh.
Oh, don't ask me that. Why are you putting me on the spot
7,
like that?
7, 8.
I want to say it's like
He was
7 to
a
9.
number under 12.
Somewhere in there. But
I'm
you guys will get
probably
to see
wrong.
him. You guys will get to see him later. But I think when we put out Trey's episode, right? You messaged us. That's how we met you.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, hey, love what you guys did. Love to come on if you guys are ever interested. And we've been trying to put it together since
November.
since last season, basically.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sticking with us, man, and being able to be here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've got kind of a weird life. I grew up in a really musical house. My dad was a producer and engineer,
Oh, okay.
and everyone in my family writes songs.
Okay.
So we're a weird batch for
I
sure.
wanted a family like that.
You wanted a family?
No one in my family played.
Oh,
Not a single
that's
person.
Unfortunate. Yeah, it's unfortunate. But yeah, I'm just a pretty artsy person. If you care about the Enneagram, I'm a 4/5. I mean,
He has no idea
I have
what that
no
is.
idea what that is.
okay, cool. We don't have to talk
Run
about
that.
it.
Run that by me.
Run that by the way. That's fine. But yeah, no, I'm just an artsy person. I describe myself like I'm a hobbit that wants to hang out in my house and
Okay.
be artistic. And Gandalf is always knocking at my front door and asking me to do crazy stuff.
Nice.
So we can kind of delve into that.
Yeah. So you said your parents were musicians? Or
Yeah, my
producer?
parents are musicians. My whole family is. So I was always surrounded by it. My dad, I think he put together the second or the first. I think the Jam Room is the second recording studio in Columbia
Oh wow.
during the like early 90s, late 80s. I want to say 88 is when they started.
Is it still operating? Oh,
Still,
okay.
Still
I'm
operating.
gonna have to look that up later.
Yeah, it's cool. It's run by Jay now, and they have this thing called the Jam Room Music Festival that they do in October each year. But yeah, I just grew up around nothing but punk and rap and early
Okay.
worship music.
Nice.
So it's kind of funny when people talk to me about music, because I remember listening to like the Queers, which was a really big 90s punk band.
Mm-hmm.
And then Laura Story and all of the Elevation dudes recorded there when they were in punk bands, because they were all pop punk kids.
Okay.
So my dad did like a lot of work with Wade Joy and
Oh wow.
those
Okay.
guys.
Yeah.
But then there was also a ton of rappers like, Fats Cat the Rapper and some of these other guys with these really weird long names.
Okay. When was this? What year would this be? Like early 2000s?
Yeah, I think he's probably most busy between 98 and 2002.
And so does he still do it or now?
He does, but in a different capacity. So in 2005, my family became full-time missionaries in Germany.
Oh wow.
They were involved in this mission organization called Proclaim International, starting in 98. And my mom and my dad felt really called to go into full-time ministry.
So how old would you have been 2005? How old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay. So we're the same age. Well, no.
Cool.
You're older.
Do you know how old you are?
I'm 27,
You
right?
are 27.
Yeah. I just turned 27.
It's weird, right? Like
Thank you.
you probably don't feel that your age, right?
No. I mean,
Well, we've been married so long, we just always feel way older than we are.
Okay.
we started going to bed and watching Jeopardy at like 9 p.m. when we were like 24.
Okay. Okay. How long have you guys been married?
9 years this year.
We got married at 18, so we just met super
Okay.
young, and
Yep.
we met originally in middle school, and literally we knew each other from the time we were 12 until now. But we started dating. We graduated both young.
Mm-hmm.
So we were 17 when we started dating. We got married and then turned 19 like a month or two later.
Man, that's
So-
like some Phil Robertson level relationship stuff going
I
on.
again, I don't know who you're referencing, but
I'm talking about the Duck Dynasty guys.
oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it just kind of ended up being that we knew each other forever by the time we started dating, and we never even thought about it until we started dating, and then it was like, oh, okay, we've already known each other like half our life at this point. And
yeah, but because of that, anyone born after like '02 assumes we're like 35 or something crazy. They're just like, you're what? You're 27?
I get one or the other.
Yeah.
I get either people guess I'm super young, or they guess I'm like in my 30s, and it's I think it's all just based on who it is, because like when we're at church or anything, like people in the like some of the youth, one of our youth, he was like, how old are you? I was like, I don't know, how old do you think I am? He was like 33. I was like, you're a jerk. And at that point I was like 25. He's like 17, 18 though. So
I feel that.
So your parents, so were you in Germany in 2005 then?
Yeah, we did 05 until I want to say it was 09. We moved back to Florida for 2 years.
Okay.
Not intentionally. We got stranded for a year, which happens a lot. And then when I was 16, we moved back and I did my last 2 years of high school in Germany.
What was that like growing up just in different places?
It feels like it's an out-of-body experience, but you never get out of the out-of-body experience.
Okay.
So you're constantly pinching yourself like, what is my life and what am I doing? And so I think a lot of, we call them TCKs, third culture kids, they look for something normal or consistent, whereas maybe a monocultural kid would look for the exciting, because their life is already exciting. So you want calm.
So musically, you went from like your dad owns a studio, you're hearing punk, rap, like all these different styles, and then you're going to different countries. Were you hearing different kinds of music over there? Like what was that?
Yeah.
How was that impactful?
Or
was it?
It was really impactful. It was interesting because Proclaim did not have a rock band, and my dad was a metalhead.
Okay.
His story is his own story. But if you can imagine a 5-year-old, like I'm sitting at this like support gala and there's thousands of people and there's a bunch of people who are in their 60s playing funk and Latino music and like, gypsy jazz and blues rock and R&B, and I'm just sitting there like, what? We're doing what? And it wasn't like worship music. It was thought provocative music meant to make people think, to have a gospel conversation or to have some kind of healing theological discussion.
When we first started talking, one of the things you had mentioned was your time touring. I know it sounds like there's been some development since there too. I don't know how much you can or would want to talk about that right now, but tell us about your time touring. What's that been like? How'd you get into it?
Yeah.
Because that's something I think a lot of people want to get into, but don't understand how.
I think the first time that it started getting more serious where I was an artist, because I essentially like 60 to 65% of my touring experience is as a roadie. Okay. Which is weird, but the helpful part about that is that I was already accustomed to it. Okay. So we would do like 6 to 8, when I was growing up as a kid each year. Mm-hmm. So like I've been like halfway across Europe and, understand the food concept and all that. But for me as an artist, I would say 23, 22, I started doing a lot of Arkansas and Mississippi and Memphis. That's when I met this guy over here in the corner who's on the ground. And I was doing a lot of worship gigs, and I did some bar gigs, and that was a lot of fun. And played bass for an Americana worship artist for the better part of 2 years. Okay. We did some really like redneck crazy kind of stuff. Like, I'll tell you about if you want to hear about it, I'll tell you about the craziest gig I've ever played.
Go for it.
If you want.
Yeah, go for it. Do it.
Okay. So
I can't turn that down. No, yeah. I'll cut it if it's too bad.
Oh, it's not. There's no cussing going to be happening or any of that. But so I think I just turned 24, and we were going to play in Arkansas, and the artist's name is Matt Koss. Okay. So this guy does like Americana blues type stuff, and his our pastor at the time was building this kind of like rehab center in the mountains in the Ozarks, and he wanted to have a dedication service. So if you're in like the charismatic world, like they'll show up and pray and pour oil and all that fun stuff. And they said, yeah, it'll be at 5 p.m. on Friday, and So Matt said, we'll get there at 9, we'll practice, we'll set up everything. And, they told us there would be a tent and there would be, some sort of like fans or whatever and a stage and, all that fun stuff. And we get there and there was a tent, but there was no stage, there was no power, and there was 3 foot tall grass underneath the tent. And it was one of the guys.
Is there like a mishap, or they just?
Well, it gets a little crazier.
Okay.
I will leave out people's names and who people are, so I'll just say what happened.
Okay.
So the person who was responsible for mowing the grass got drunk the night before. He apologized, and so we were like stuck because we have to bail this hay out. So we ended up bailing this hay out, and we've got like Matt's got his wife with him, and she's got a baby, and it's like 102 degrees.
You guys are like farming.
Well, yeah, we're like farming over here with like plowshares and stuff, and we finally get the sound system up, and it's manic, and it's 10 minutes before the event, right? We haven't got to practice yet.
Yeah,
I don't have the set list yet.
Line check, anything?
We've done the line check. There's no set list. There's nothing.
Forego it all.
And it starts to get a little crazy. I'm feeling probably the most anxiety that I felt because there was 300 people that came out of nowhere, and like the governor of Arkansas was there.
Okay.
And the head of the Navajo Nation was there.
Okay.
It's some really bizarre kind of,
Which you probably wouldn't think like anybody would show based on like how when you got there.
No, absolutely
nowhere.
not.
Just 300 people showing.
Yeah. So I'm like covered in sweat, and I think I was actually wearing this shirt. And Matt, he turns his head and he's like, he's somewhere else.
And you're playing.
I'm playing bass.
Bass for this. Okay.
For this, and he looks over and he says, "We're gonna play in G." And I'm playing like
there it is,
country G, like C, and doing Nashville numbers, and but yeah, that was nuts. That's the hardest $300 I've ever worked for.
Oh man, yeah, my heart drops when I hear that number. Yeah, there's some crazy things that I think musicians end up kind of just. Every gig is unique. You just kind of sign up and then you're in it, and it's like they take different turns. I was trying to think of like.
Didn't you have one time where you got like eaten alive by bugs because it was in a field?
Yeah, we've had that. Yeah, I've had that happen. Yeah.
Man.
You had to like put nail polish on all the bites when you got home.
Yeah, that one was bad. We had I had another one where they were doing, it was like a 24-hour prayer.
Yeah.
And we had one where a guy got up in the middle of the set and grabbed the mic and was like, "Give me the mic." And he took it and proceeded to our set got extended like another like hour 15 because that's how he just stayed up there. Like I think it was partially preaching, part of it was praying, we had like a 2.5 hour set to begin with. So we ended up there like just shy of 4 hours. And by the end of it, I had just looped the part. I pulled out the looper and just looped whatever lead line needed to be played. Down. And then I just sat on top of the amp. I was like 16, 17. So I did not care. I was like, all right, listen, we've already been here 40 extra
Fingers
minutes.
Are going numb.
I was like, the song's in D. We're just going to swell a couple notes and then just be done. And so I pivoted, but that one was pretty fun. It was I think at that age I was still pretty carefree on like it didn't bother me one bit. I thought it was kind of funny if anything, and I just like relaxed and went with it. But so when it comes to touring, like just as an artist, so like leading on a tour, like how did you start doing that? What was one of the first like steps towards that process? I
had a couple different bands, and I just started like
cold calling people.
Yeah. I mean, what do you do, right? I mean, you don't have a budget. You're a young dude, and you're working, and you just have to figure it out.
Yep.
And so I had a couple of interesting gigs the first time around. I actually had a pop punk worship band, and we played in this church, and that was really fun and kind of ridiculous. I would say it was the first real gig for me. I played a gay bar with my worship band.
Okay.
Wow.
Which was
that's unique.
That was a trip. And I don't know how this happened, but there's this bar in Columbia called the Art Bar, and it was right after I got really serious. I'd written like probably a couple hundred tunes, but I hadn't really gone out and done it as an artist. I just played one-offs and all this sort of thing. And God was just like, call them up. They'll open it up for you. And so they did. And I thought it was funny. The second band was the Silver Tongue Devils, and the lead line band was called Raz. So you had Jacob Davis and the Nightingales with this half worship band, rock band thing. And it was crazy. We showed up there and 2 people went to 70 people, and there's a bunch of drunk Marines telling me how much they love me and how much they love my music, and they're dancing to my testimonial tune instead of
I think one of my favorite things about it sounds like the band wasn't quite just straight up worship tunes. So that's I think one of the things I wish that people, especially in the Christian community more, would go into wherever, because the truth is that there's no, I mean, ultimately you're playing a gig and you're there, and there's nothing there shouldn't be anything complicated about it. It's just showing up and being a decent human being. Goodness, it's just playing music, So let me ask you, when it comes to facing hurdles, maybe through touring, maybe through other parts of being an artist, what are some hurdles you've experienced?
I'll answer the touring part first, because that's a little easier. I think really there's a lot of misconceptions, and people have presuppositions. They have these expectations of who you are, and depending upon how you present yourself, they'll just shut you down in 5 seconds flat. And so that can be hard. And so you just have to learn to be like, you know what, it's okay. I wasn't supposed to go there. It's fine. Move on. I think another thing too is the more you can control what you're bringing to an event and knowing who's going to be there to help you, the better. I was just talking about this with somebody today, going over some stuff. A lot of times I'll end up doing multiple roles. There's a sound guy there who doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
You've got to make sure that you're getting paid. So you're the one that goes and get the cash and make sure you have the conversation beforehand, and you're the one setting it up and tearing it down, and no one's running the merch table, so you need to learn how to run the merch table, and you can set your merch table up.
Got the iPad with the little square reader.
Oh yeah. Yep. Well, I was doing it before we had any of that, so I was in the process of going from A to Z, and we started off with cold cash and envelopes, and
giving me war flashbacks over here.
Oh yeah, that's
cash box.
Yeah,
cash box. Answering your bit about the artist bit, and I think I wrote this down. I would say for me as an artist, the hardest bit has been when people ask me to be who I am, and then they completely reject me as an artist. That's really hilarious to me.
Yeah. What do you mean?
So there's a lot of different wisdom in different camps, regardless of what genre you're in. And they're basically saying just be you and do you and be the best you can
be. Yourself, yeah.
And I think it's important to understand that only certain tribes are going to gravitate to what you're doing. And you can't really control how large that tribe is and who those people are.
Yeah.
And, your job is just to be true to the tribe. I think that's kind of what I've come to. It's a working theory, so don't.
No. So for us, I think, there's an element of so we have a secular band, and then we write worship tunes with our church. And then Shay and I are actually working on a worship album right now as well. And so there's this element of in each of those scenarios, we go into different places, whether it's a bar or whatever. And there's just a way that you're naturally inclined to act. I go to gigs, and for the most part, I'm pretty low key, and I'm not big on the, it's not that I don't think showmanship's important, because I absolutely do, but I'm not a jump around the stage kind of guy, even though our music is, I would say, fairly energetic as far as the band goes, secular wise.
I try to make up for it.
And there's this difference of I would say our band is a big group of introverts. If anything, I think I might be the most extroverted out of our entire crew. And that's really unique, because I kind of have gone through that same thing where it's well, just be yourself. And it's myself wants to not be in this room. But I also, part of who I am, I feel led and called to share songs. And so there's this element where while I feel like I'm supposed to share songs, it's tough for me to do. I love writing them. I would write them and be alone and write them all day and never worry about it. But when you feel like you're supposed to share, and I don't think you know quite how to be in that scenario, it's unique. I think a lot of people search for that, and then you see different artists, and this was always interesting to me. I watch other artists, and they're all varied. It's all just connecting with the right group of people to match that. So I think I get kind of what you're saying. So as far as your music, you said so there's a question here that says, what's something you hope to accomplish in your music career? And on the way in the door, you were like, I've hit a few musical accolades. So I don't know if we can group all that together. Yeah. Give me some insight into that. I know you said you've hit some milestones or something like that.
Yeah. It's been really interesting. So the biggest thing for me for the next 2 years is I wanted to, go and do music full time. And there's a lot of different reasons why I wanted to do that. And I think every artist feels that way, but I felt led to do it, not just because I wanted to do it. I was like, okay, Lord, what are we doing? He's like, start practicing memorizing your stuff because you're going to be on the road for, forever. So lo and behold, now I work for a college called Visible Music College, and my main job has been an admissions counselor for them, which is just an academic salesman.
Okay.
I tried to make it cooler than it actually sounds. It's not really a thing.
That's really what it is.
It's really what it is. But now I've been brought on as a booking agent for part of the time. I'm signed to Madison Line Records as an independent artist. I've got the Songfinch thing. So I've got extra income, main income, side income.
Yeah.
And then, we just have like access to a lot of different churches and people, and we're going to be able to tour a lot.
Cool.
I've also gotten to get connected with some people to do some pretty big co-writes.
Okay.
And I'm also getting ready to finally release one of the songs is a co-write with Andy Squires that is a cool friend. I like that guy. He's fun. Yeah, man, I'm fired up about it. I came in fired up about it. I was like, this is going to be great.
So when it comes to doing your recording, I'm just curious, where are you doing all that at right now? Like, is that because you're signed, there's a studio you're heading to specifically? What's that been like?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. The next project I'm doing is mainly out of necessity. I've got at least 2 to 3 different records I'm trying to get out in the next year or two.
All underneath Jacob Adam Davis?
All underneath Jacob Adam Davis, yeah.
Okay.
The first thing that I'm doing, because it's very cost effective, is I've got just hundreds of worship songs, and they're starting to get in the way of my creativity. Like I hit like a 700 or so in the last year.
That's just a couple.
Yeah. They're not all good. There's plenty of bad ones out there. But there's at least 50 that I really love, and I'm trying to get, 10 of those out.
Narrow down.
So
yeah.
I'm just going to invite my worship pastor to come to my house, and we'll do a live acoustic one day, sweet. Bring people over. I love that, like, before Maverick City was a thing, I love the whole spontaneous, like, house prayer worship stuff.
Yeah.
And so I've got like...
I didn't even know it, but the Old Church Basement album, I guess, was co-written by Elevation. Somebody told me that yesterday that was down there, which I did not understand that. But that's been a random factoid.
Yeah.
So that's what album number 1 is the live worship.
Yeah. And then I've got another one. I'll need to save up a little more moolah for it. But this one I want to do a more studio professional record. It's going to be called Hymn of Grit. And I'm going to drop that single probably here in the spring. Okay. I'm waiting on, like, I need my sister to sing something. And
okay. Now, when you say, are you getting, because you're signed, and I'm just curious, because you're signed, is that part of that you're going to get that recorded, or?
Yeah.
Because you said you're saving up money. So I'm just curious, because I think a lot of people think that, I'm signed, so therefore there's no cost.
They just do everything.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that's an interesting perspective. Somebody who is signed.
Yeah.
Do you end up paying for any of your records in that way? Like, what's that, what's some insight there? Because I think people maybe think it's just free.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I think a lot of independent labels will give smaller amounts of money to certain projects, and depends upon what the label is. A lot of them are popping up now as just some grandma that has like $1 million and she wants to, it's that kind of situation.
Got you.
But they're wanting to do I don't know if you looked at any of my stuff. I love math rock.
Okay.
And I love alternative music. I'm an emo kid.
Okay.
All the way through and through. And I really have always wanted to do a alternative emo, fully spontaneous worship EP live, but no pop progressions allowed. No 1 5 6 4 allowed.
Okay.
Not even.
Okay.
I want like screaming, give me rap, give me some breakdowns, just like.
Okay.
But they really like that idea. I've been passionate about it, and it's been sitting on a shelf, and so that'll be the thing that I do with them.
Now, so getting into the metal conversation, did you grow up playing a lot of metal? Because I know you said your dad. Like, are you talking like 7 strings on this record, or like, how low are we tuning?
Well,
I'm a little bit of a metalhead myself, so I'm just curious. Like, what's your
I'll have stuff in drop D and C and C sharp, and I'll have a baritone for this record, so we'll have some stuff in drop A and all that fun stuff. We'll just see how low we can get it. My range is like 3 octaves in F, so I'd hate singing in G. I tell people like G can get wrecked. It's the worst key ever.
I had my range is limited, is what I would say. I'm a baritone. I didn't know that forever. And so like a lot of like modern music was not accessible to me. I'd go to like sing a worship tune and like I could do like 90% of it, but anytime they jump, I was like, that's not going to work.
Man.
And it took me, I did not start off. Did you start off singing or did you start off playing guitar?
I did start singing actually.
Okay. So I started playing guitar first, and I don't think I tried to sing until I was maybe like 15, 16. What age did you start trying to pick up like different instruments?
I think I was 11 when I picked up a guitar.
Okay.
I'd had some sax lessons and I'd been singing.
That's so cool. I'm so jealous of that. Saxophone lessons? Like, how old were you learning saxophone?
I think it was 8.
That's just ridiculous. That's so cool. My father-in-law was a saxophone major.
Okay.
So I just got to see him
you
play
heard it live for the first time.
Second time
Christmas,
I've ever seen
right?
it live. And one thing, he messed up a couple times. And so he's gonna be
mad you putting that on the
that I'm bringing this
podcast.
up. But we go to play his service on Christmas Day.
Okay.
And I guess like impromptu, somebody was like, "Hey, can you play instrumentally some saxophone stuff during this like unique thing that's a part of the message or whatever?" Which he planned the message, so it was like partially on him. But he goes to play this, and he didn't even get a chance to put a reed on the instrument yet.
Gosh.
And
warm up.
I didn't even
anything.
know what it sounds like when somebody's messing up on saxophone. Like all this is totally brand new to me. And my brother-in-law and my brother-in-law is 21. We're sitting and we're on the live stream too. You can see we're in like the second pew.
Yeah.
This is like still, and as he starts to play, can you?
I cannot do it.
Yeah, but you know
he
how to
made
do
some
it.
squeaky noises. We'll
And
just put it that
as
way.
it's happening, Cameron and I are looking down.
Try not to die laughing.
Oh no!
And you can see it on camera afterwards.
He
we
was
didn't
so
know.
irritated
We went
with
back
us.
and watched it, and you can see us both just dying, and my mother-in-law going, "Stop it!" Looking next to us.
He did great the whole rest
He
of the
did.
time.
He killed
but
it after that, but it was just a
man.
consequence
a
of
little squeaky. At the
right
beginning.
now. He is both leading worship and preaching, so he's
Okay.
going from like thing to thing to
Okay.
thing, and it just the time to rehearse saxophone for the morning was not there. So I felt for him, but I also had never experienced that before, and I was not prepared to not laugh, kind of thing. I didn't see it coming.
Man, my dad would have had a panic attack if he had done that. He's a bass player, and guitar player, and he like meticulously practices. He will not play if it's not
Really?
like it's just. It has to be up here or it's nothing. It's not happening.
He would get irritated with me then. I don't practice for anything.
I don't think so. He's gracious.
I'm pretty notorious for that.
Oh man.
So tell us about your musical influences. Obviously, you grew up like you told us a little bit about growing up in the studio and then like traveling abroad. But what about like specific artists?
Yeah. I think for me, there is the first artist that was really important was actually John Cox, who I don't think I put him on in your notes. This guy, his band went on to be Sonic Flood, but he had this solo career, and he was doing pop punk before pop punk was a thing.
Okay.
But with like a Matchbox 20 acoustic guitar kind of deal. So when, my friend David Beck was like, "Hey, you got to check out Blink 182," and I'm in middle school and life is the worst. I'm like, yeah, sure. Blink sounds great.
Yeah.
So I think Blink 182, Green Day, there's a long period where John Mark Millen is like a big deal.
Yeah. So what would you say like your main instrument guitar? Then like as far as like playing goes.
Yeah, as playing goes. But I'm trying to get all my other instruments up to the same.
Yeah. Do you have like what would the hierarchy be?
Yeah. After voice, it's guitar, bass, and then mandolin and piano are kind of at the same.
How long have you been playing mandolin for? It's not one that everybody
6
says.
years.
Okay.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How'd you get into that? Just somebody had one or?
No, I really wanted to, and I thought it'd be good for a lot of the Americana stuff that I was writing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of been an asset.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I picked up guitar first. Trey and I talked about this because a girl was why I picked up guitar.
Yeah.
And then after that, I started taking, piano. I wouldn't say the theory part came naturally, but the dexterity of being able to play one came really natural to me. And so I joined a band where one of them was a vocal coach and the other was a piano teacher. So I started taking lessons from both of them. And I didn't take piano for very long, just like enough to get up and running. But I've been playing ever since then. And that would have been maybe 16. And then vocals was a process that started from 15 to... we have vocal tracking tomorrow and on Tuesday, and I stress about it to the nines. I love it because I love songwriting, not because I just like love to sing. But I love writing. That's really the thing that grabbed hold of me and that I do all the time. It's therapy for me.
Me? Voice for the longest time. I fiddled with guitar because I had a lot of them in my house growing up and could go in and goof off whenever I wanted to, but I didn't really start playing it until my youth band leader told me I was playing one week or something like that, and he was like, learn chords, and I was like, okay. So we learned the C, A minor, F, G progression. Got that down pat. Still have it down pat. And I don't know that I'm still not great at guitar. I don't think I'm great at guitar. I can make it through a worship service, but like I'm not the one who tracks anything while we're in here. He was tracking bass the other day. That's the other thing I play, which I also filled out of necessity because our band didn't have a bass player. But he wrote a part on bass that I will never be able to play in my entire life. And I'm like, thank you.
We're gonna get you
for
there.
making that
It'll
impossible.
happen. It's a cool part. I'll show it to you later if you didn't see the clip.
Dude, I'm here for it.
But yeah, I pretty much honestly like once I started writing, everything that I play has become a like, oh, I already wrote this. And I can't do it yet. So let me just, like, I'm just bridging the gap of whatever I wrote. And it's been the same thing with voice for me as well. Like I hear something in my head. I want it to exist, but I can't do it yet. And it's just about getting to that spot. And that's just, I think maybe between that and then like recording the same time, like starting to hear yourself back more and more and more and more. I think that really pushed me because I'm like, okay, like I know where I want it to be and I can clearly hear it's not there. Just figuring out how to get to that point. Which that kind of segues me into, we were talking this season about like what we want our, like we do a branded question where we ask everybody and hopefully put it together in a compilation at the end. But I wanted to ask you, what's your process taking a song like from start to finish? I think that's probably a little different for everybody, but I think that's a unique kind of process for each person. So
yeah. So for me, regardless of whatever the starting point is, I usually get an itch. I'll call it like a mental itch. And whether it's a worship song or a I don't want to use the word secular because I disagree with the secular sacred argument. I think it's crap.
Yeah.
But we'll say commercial tune. I get an itch of some sort, and I'm like, I wish there was something about this or that. I wish there was a song about this. And eventually, after mewing over it for the better part of a couple of days, I come up a melody, lyric line, chord progression comes to my mind, a riff. And then I'm like, okay, that seems like that's worth pursuing. So then I'll sit down and I'll just crank out the entire tune.
Okay.
And
One sitting.
One sitting, just sit there, knock it out. Regardless of how good or how bad it is or whatever, I'm not going to get up until it's quote unquote done with the first draft.
Okay.
And then I usually, because I'm usually done by 8 p.m. or whatever whenever I sit down to do it. And then I'll go to bed. I'll wake up the next day and I'll go back and edit and change and add parts. Maybe like
now, are you just based on what you're saying? You're tracking this on the way in, basically, like as you write, you're recording.
It depends
on something.
Yeah,
like voice note, even kind of.
I think it depends on how difficult it is.
Okay.
So I'm of the opinion that most of the time, if a song is great, it will be great with an acoustic rhythm guitar and a vocal track. The exceptions would be is that if there isn't an acoustic guitar and if it's a heavier, riffier,
or if no vocal, right?
So I usually, if it's just acoustic thing, then I'm just trying to get the sauce. Like we're trying to get to that, magical moment where people are like, that's it, that's the thing, right? So yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for. If it's with a worship song, usually God will be like, say this and like lay out a line for me, or he'll be like, I want you to write something about this, and doesn't give me any instruction at all or whatever, and then I just kind of roll with that.
Okay. Yeah. Now, once you've got them written, like, I mean, you said something like 700 songs, so obviously probably not every one, but when you're taking the song to like getting it to the point where you're putting it out. So once it's written, like what's your process look like from, okay, so like you've done the first draft, so to speak, and then you want to put it out. Are you working with a bunch of other musicians? Like what's kind of your typical, you have like a typical way you go about getting one like finally produced kind of thing?
Yeah, I like working with friends that I know that are good enough to play it.
Yeah.
And so
so you don't play everything on them?
No.
Okay. Some people do.
Yeah, some people do. I will demo it out fully if I feel like if there's like a certain thing that I want, I love gospel progressions, so I'm kind of obsessed with flat major chords and minor fours, and I love extensions. So the crazier it gets, the more narrow the group of people that I'll ask to play, and I might end up playing more actually.
Yeah.
But to kind of answer your question further, a lot of my songs get demoed and then I'll just like road test them.
Okay.
And if the road test fails, then you need to go back and go fix it.
Keep going back. Yeah.
I think a big factor is how much go-get-em, tenacity do you have as a person, and how much diligence do you have? And that really, I think, is the key factor in how much you can do in yourself versus with other people. And then also knowing your strengths. Like, I suck at drums. Like I just straight up suck. Like, I can't do it. Which is funny because that's the first instrument I picked up. And
really?
I can hold like the 4 and the 4 beat, and everything else just sounds like garbage.
I'm working on it right now, actually. I picked up like a little. We've played a little bit through the years. There's a couple impromptu times where somebody's like, "We really need this," and I'm like, "All right, but only these like 2 songs are available," and it's like a youth worship set or something like that,
Yeah.
And I've played twice for that, and then I kind of decided to take a crack at it. That was like a birthday thing.
It's sitting in my living room right now.
So there's a nice kit in the living room, but
it's fine.
I try to keep it quiet. It's an electric kit, but it does the job. It does the job. So one of the other questions we asked everybody last season, and we'll bring this back, which is just kind of like in a general sense, and to kind of recap for people who maybe haven't seen it since we're launching into a new season. One of my favorite things about music is that it bridges a gap, and I'm kind of answering this for myself. Like the reason, I know it's kind of weird because I think at least in this room, everybody's believers, but also a lot of us have written secular, if you will, music. And for me, like, I've always just felt a conviction to be honest about how I feel, which is not always good. And I think there was a time where like when I would watch people, especially in the church, not that you can't put all your problems on other people. At least I'm not going to right now. But I watched and I was like, again, it's not their job to like prove anything to me. I don't feel that way, but I would watch it and I'd be like, I don't know if that's real. I'm really skeptical on the front end of it. And everything I gravitated towards in music that I felt like, oh, that person understands me, was somebody writing secular tunes. And that was a really weird thing. And like you trying to navigate that. And I always valued it, not necessarily when Trey was on, we talked about this. Like, I don't think that should happen from the stage at a church at all. Maybe not at all, but like generally speaking, that's not what I'm sitting here advocating for. But I always appreciated it when somebody who was in a church would tell me about something that was going on in their life that wasn't all just like, praise God, you know, and that's great. Obviously we need to do that, but I just always valued the extra input. And so when it came to like my writing, as I started to write, I just wrote about wherever I was at right then and there. I wasn't like filtering it out because that would be weird to me. I don't know. I know some people maybe do, or maybe write and then like don't put out certain things, but we've always just kind of felt like, I mean, we're writing it. It's like, maybe there's a thing here and there I hold back, but generally speaking, we just feel like one of the most valuable things about that is that you're just being honest. And so we always try to like, I think about it, and when I think on music and what it means to us is it bridges this gap where we get to like connect with people that maybe we wouldn't normally. You know, we'll go play in a bar, or go play in these places where maybe we don't believe the same thing. I don't care what other I do, but I don't like have hate in my heart for people that don't believe the same things as me, not an ounce. And so there's this element of like, I get to connect because I know that whether or not we're going through the same thing or we believe the same thing or everything about us is identical, there's probably been some things that we've gone through that maybe we've had the same feeling on. And maybe you'll hear that in this song or that song or whatever. And it just opens a door, I think. And I love that about music. And so that was kind of even some of the vision of this show is we're always talking with people about music, whether it's people that we meet randomly or people that we meet at church or people that we meet like getting coffee or whatever. So I will pass that to you. What does music mean to you? I'm sorry I took a lot of the time.
I love how passionate you are about that.
I'm very passionate about it. That's why I'm sitting here doing what I'm doing.
It's so great. I was just telling my coworkers that y'all are like the Joe Rogan of like worship leading podcasts.
I'm going to take that.
It's fantastic. I love it.
I got to find a way to print that on a shirt.
You should. Go right ahead. I think music is the universal language of emotions, and it's amazing. It can be a really great friend when there's no one else around. You know, for me, I know we're not necessarily on a testimonial bit, like, but I was sitting there, you know, my wife's mentor's getting married tomorrow. So we're here in town celebrating her. And, you know, lady's in her 60s and she's remarrying, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's made me very pensive. And I was sitting there thinking about 13-year-old Jacob today and the depression I battled, the demonic night terrors for 8 years, the, you know, early onset alcoholism and all kind of other evil things, and how different of a person I was. And I found music and, you know, here in this like cessationistic Bible church culture, God started speaking through music, and that was my only community. And to see God like transform my life and use music as the continual like background and the you know, the paint that goes on the canvas. You know, it's just been a beautiful, wonderful thing. You know, I think music is also like how to describe it's like having a friend that can handle your hottest emotions, whether you're incredibly sorrowful or whether you're incredibly joyful or you're incredibly thankful. It has the capacity, you know. I would almost, you know, use the picture of like Atlas, even though I'm not a Greek god believer, because that'd be kind of weird. But, you know, Atlas is like holding up the earth, right? And that's like his whole thing, and he gets tricked in that. But
you've done more school than I have.
I'm just a nerd. So people think that I'm not, and I'm really a nerd. But he's like, you know, holding up the earth or whatever in the Greek pantheon. And I think music is a lot like that. And as a like follower of Jesus, I think God allows music to to be this space, this canvas that can hold these really hard things. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch.
It's good. I like that. I love that every single musician, it's like similar but slightly different, and it's so unique to hear. Like that's part of the vision for the podcast in the first place. Is like we're always talking to people about this kind of stuff. So, well, we're running a little low on time. I got 2 questions for you, which you walked through the door with them, and I gotta hear the story about this. You came through the door with potato chips and orange juice, and then proceeded to say it was some sort of like tried and true method, and I was literally like, I started to ask you to explain, and then we cut you off and said, wait, save it for the show.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, run me down the Lay's and Tropicana dynamic duo here.
Yeah, it's not even Tropicana; it's the orange juice factory.
Okay.
So in the '80s, Amy Grant. This is a story from my dad. So you're gonna have to fact check me later on.
Okay. Well, Amy Grant, if you see this clip, feel free to verify.
Yeah. So Amy Grant shows up in the studio and she's got a tune she's got to record, and they start taking the first take, and the producer immediately stops her, and he's like, What kind of crap did you eat? It's like, oh, I had cake, And he was like, okay, give me 1 second. He brought back a bag of chips and some orange juice. Have that. And she has that. And then the second take, she nailed it. She was like, what is this? And like, this works every time. Okay. And so in college, I had a whole class on tannins. And tannins.
Like from the show where they're like freaking tannins. Like with wine, like tannins?
So, yeah, there's tannins in wine, but tannins essentially are chemicals, potassium and different other like colorizations. Okay. They drastically can affect your voice if you're sensitive to them. And so this doesn't work for everybody, but I have low blood sugar, and I did a whole experiment where I figured out different juices did different things to my voice naturally.
Okay.
And so because we're singing an emo worship tune today, I need some extra sauce.
Okay.
And orange juice. It allows me, if I'm doing orange juice and then what I call the rock triangle. I was a vocal teacher for a while.
Okay.
You just sing out of one side of your mouth. You create a triangle with your mouth, Doing that allowed me to not hurt myself. So I could add as much dirt as I wanted to, or as clean of a sound as I wanted to.
Okay.
This doesn't work for everybody because some people have high blood sugar and some people they'll drink like tea and they're
like. So how widespread of a thing is the orange juice and potato chips? Is this like unique to you, or is this like there are other people that do this too?
This is a major thing for a lot of people.
Okay. Wow. I've never.
Yeah.
I mean, like I've heard of like the like the whiskey because that's like but not I don't know. Like for me personally, I've always just been like water, maybe a little bit of tea. That's like all I've ever done. And
Man.
There's this element of like you hear different stories. I've never had. Other than doing warm-ups, drinking water, not drinking coffee, and drinking throat coat tea.
Yeah.
That's all I do vocally. Is there some, I'm curious because I like potato chips.
Yeah. No,
I like orange juice.
You're just giving him an excuse
I'm not against that method.
Lays.
This is for my health.
Yeah. Well, sodium's good for you. Pretty much any drink is like juice is okay, except for cranberry juice. It'll highly dehydrate you. Milk is a huge no. Don't touch dairy with a 10-foot pole.
Okay.
It's so bad for you before you sing.
Is coffee really bad for you?
Coffee's bad for you, in terms of like your voice, but it does wake you up. It's like a double-edged sword for me. Well, it's a double-edged sword for me because it's great, for keeping you mentally awake.
Yeah.
So you need 2 cups, like measuring cups of water for every measuring cup of coffee that you have.
So I've heard this, and then but I've also met people who seem like miraculously unaffected by coffee, and I always
drink coffee.
I feel it really heavily.
I
get really dried out when I drink coffee. But I also drink a lot of coffee, so there's this element where I watch other people, and they're like, "Yeah, it doesn't really bug me," and some of them they talk to me, and it's like. They think of it like tea because it's like a hot beverage. Warm. So it's like warm and like, so there's this like idea that somehow it's soothing, but I don't know. I've never felt that way. So I had hope though. I had hope.
I'm calling urban myth on that.
No, well, I appreciate you giving me insight to it. I'm gonna have to try this because I'm doing some tracking this week. So I'm gonna give it a shot. I'll let you know if it works. So in closing, you said it was what you already
Emo
described
worship
it
song.
to some extent, but tell us about the song that you're gonna do today.
Yeah, so I'm Empty. For all those listening that are math rock fans, I'm sorry, it's not a math rock tune. This is like, it's kind of like my business card song is what I'm describing it as. So it's emo, but it's a worship song. You could definitely sing it in church. You could also not sing it in church because it's gutsy enough. It was a co-write with a pastor of mine. He was going through really a hard time. It was a 2020 tune. There's a lot of 2020 tunes coming out that are like major heavy hitters because that was like the world phenomenal, world phenomenal we went through. That was this like traumatic thing, And anyway, but we both had really hard years. He sent me the lyrics and asked me to put it to melody and chords, and I added, I believe, the bridge, and then changed up some things and made it so that it was singable, and presented it for church, and they loved it, and it was like an anthem for them. And then one of the elders at our church, David Escrow, comes to me and says, "Hey, I have a prophetic word for you, and you're not going to like what I'm going to say. You're going to live this song. And it's going to humble you." And he was right. I went through like the worst possible. I mean, like I wasn't the prodigal, but I went through what the prodigal went through.
Yeah, I saw a little. I think you made a post about it. I think I saw a touch of it. I mean, however deep into it you want to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I lost like 6 months of shows. I had a breakout tour with Under the Radar with Kevin Max and his crew. And that like blew up,
fell through.
Yeah, everything was, I was just teaching and derping around, and then I had to move back here, and I was painting, and
this is after you wrote the song.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like brutal. And on top of all that, I'd the good part was that I met my wife and we got married. We've been married 6 months and a couple days now.
Aw, congrats.
That was a good part, but like. I was telling her, like, babe, this is like the worst possible time that you could have met me ever. God used that, and like the fire of it allowed me to just become a more humble person. And I wasn't a jerk, but I think I definitely was just, I was so go get 'em that I was missing the beauty that is happening in life with the gift that we have that God's given us. Just I was missing the smelling of the roses.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
nice, man. Well, on that note, I'm excited to hear the song. I hadn't actually heard it yet. I listened to a couple of them on Spotify here and there. I think I might have heard like a clip of it here and there. If you've played it on Instagram, I think I scrolled through those and saw a couple of you playing, but. I'm excited.
We try to ride this line between like knowing enough about the person,
but not too much about the person.
We don't.
I want to like that way. Everything
we don't want to
hear
answer
is not,
your questions for you.
Yeah, like so, like I didn't read like through it all. She told me you answered them all, and I was like, I'm just gonna wait. So we keep it like. Try to keep a certain amount of informed amongst all of us. But anyway, thank you so much for being on the show, Jacob. It was great to have you. And we're gonna close it here. Where can people find your music? Where can people find your Instagram? Like plug anything and everything you want to plug.
Yeah, so you can find my music under Jacob Adam Davis on pretty much any platform that you want. I know that most people are on Spotify and Amazon and Apple Music, so you can find it there. The majority of my social media is under JAD Music Life, and my website's jadmusiclife.com. If you're an older person and you like Facebook, then you can find me. But
it's almost gone.
Yeah, it's almost gone.
It's almost gone. Awesome. Well, again, Jacob, thank you so much for being here. And without any further ado, here is I'm Empty by Jacob Adam Davis.
3, 4.
Wrestle with, yeah, you do provide. And alone you're casting down the enemy's lies. Here I am vacantly deprived, longing for a feeling, a challenge to my life. I'm empty, in need of you. empty, alone, maroon. I'm empty, I need your joy. I'm empty, please come and restore me. You see all the days that the locusts took from me, yeah, where my fortune fades across roads of my journey. How your goodness I will speak of, where all my dreams arose. Yes, in your love and reverence where I can be known. I'm empty in need of you. I'm empty, alone, maroon. I'm empty, I need your joy. I'm empty, please come restore me. Please come restore. Lord, you are my portion, in you I find my fill. Your spirit draws me close and intimacy reveals. So I look at my depression and say to my defeat that Jesus is a friend of mine, the Lord who meets my needs. It's never about the feeling, it's always about you, Lord. So here I shout the victory. Empty is space for more. Oh, I'm empty, that's space for you. I'm empty, you always knew. I'm empty, you're coming home. 'Cause when I'm empty, I'm never alone. I'm empty, that space